I was sitting in the dimly lit hospital room, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my nostrils as the steady beep of the heart monitor echoed through the silence. The man lying in the bed was barely recognizable, tubes and wires snaking out from under the crisp white sheets, his face pale and bruised. It was Matt, my best friend since childhood, the guy who had been by my side through every scraped knee, every heartache, every ridiculous adventure. And now he was fighting for his life after a brutal hate crime, all because he was gay. The doctor had just left, his words still ringing in my ears. "It's touch and go," he said. "The next 24 hours are critical." I felt a lump form in my throat, tears welling up in my eyes. How could this happen? How could someone hurt Matt like this just because of who he loved? I took his hand, careful not to disturb the Roman IV drip, and squeezed it gently. "I'm here, Matt," I whispered. "I'm right here." As I sat there, holding his hand, I couldn't help but think back to all the moments that had led us here. Matt had come out to me when we were just kids, his voice shaking with fear. I remembered the exact words I said to him. "I don't care who you love, Matt. You're my best friend, and that's all that matters." And I meant it. I had always been there for him, supporting him, loving him as a friend. But as I looked at him now, so vulnerable and broken, I realized that my feelings for Matt were so much more complicated than I had ever admitted. In that quiet hospital room, with the beep of the heart monitor keeping time, I finally allowed myself to face the truth. I was in love with Matt. I had been for years, but I had pushed it down, ignored it, told myself it was just friendship. But seeing him like this, knowing that I could lose him forever, it all became crystal clear. I loved him, and I needed him to know. But how could I tell him now, when he was fighting for his life? How could I burden him with my feelings when he was already carrying so much? I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. I should have told him years ago. I should have been brave enough to admit my feelings, to stand by him not just as a friend, but as someone who loved him completely. But I hadn't, and now it might be too late. As I sat there, holding his hand, I made a promise to myself. If Matt pulled through, I would tell him the truth. No matter what the consequences, I would finally be honest with him and with myself. Little did I know that promise would change everything. As the hours ticked by in that hospital room, I found myself lost in a sea of memories. Each beep of the heart monitor seemed to echo a different moment from our past. I remembered the time we snuck out to go skinny dipping in the lake, laughing under the moonlight, feeling invincible. I remembered the way he looked at me when I had my first heartbreak, his eyes filled with a warmth and understanding that went beyond friendship. I remembered every hug, every touch, every shared secret. It was all there, painted vividly in my mind, a tapestry of a love story that I had been too afraid to see. The nurse came in to check on Matt, her voice soft and reassuring. "He's stable for now," she said, giving me a small smile. "Keep talking to him, it helps." As she left, I took a deep breath and started to speak. I told Matt about all the memories flooding back, about how much he meant to me, about how I couldn't imagine a world without him in it. I poured out my heart, hoping that somehow he could hear me. And then, something incredible happened. Matt's fingers twitched in mine, a small but unmistakable movement. My heart leapt into my throat as I watched his eyelids flutter open. He looked at me, his eyes filled with confusion and pain, but also with a spark of recognition. "Ethan," he whispered, his voice hoarse. I squeezed his hand, tears streaming down my face. "I'm here, Matt," I said. "I'm right here." Over the next few days, Matt slowly began to recover. He was weak and in pain, but he was alive, and with each passing day I grew more determined to keep my promise. I had to tell him the truth about my feelings, but as he got stronger, I started to notice something. Matt was different, quieter, more withdrawn. He would look at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, a mix of gratitude and something else. Something that looked almost like fear. One evening, as I was helping him sit up in bed, he finally spoke up. "Ethan, why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I looked at him confused. "What do you mean?" I asked. He took a deep breath, his eyes filled with a vulnerability that broke my heart. "Why are you being so kind to me?" he said. "After everything that's happened, why are you still here?" I was taken aback. Didn't he know? Couldn't he see? I took his hand, my heart pounding in my chest. "Matt, I'm here because I love you," I said. "I've always loved you, and I need you to know that." The room fell silent as Matt looked at me, his eyes wide with shock. And in that moment, I knew that our journey was far from over. The room felt like it was spinning as Matt looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of shock and disbelief. "Ethan, what are you saying?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was it, the moment of truth. "Matt, I'm saying that I'm in love with you," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. "I've been in love with you for years, but I was too afraid to admit it. To myself, to you, to anyone. But seeing you like this, knowing that I could have lost you, it made me realize that I can't keep hiding it. I love you, Matt. Completely, truly, deeply." Matt's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment I thought I had made a terrible mistake. But then he reached out and took my hand, his grip weak but sure. "Ethan, I don't know what to say," he whispered. "I never knew, I never even thought." I shook my head, cutting him off. "You don't have to say anything, Matt," I said. "I just needed you to know, and if you don't feel the same way, that's okay. I'll still be here for you no matter what. As your friend, as your—" This time, it was Matt who interrupted me. "Ethan, stop," he said, his voice gaining a bit of strength. "Stop talking and just listen." He took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving mine. "I love you too, Ethan, I always have, but I thought you were straight. I thought you could never feel the same way, so I buried it. I pushed it down and tried to move on, but I never stopped loving you." My heart felt like it was going to burst. I leaned in, gently cupping his face in my hands. "Matt, I'm so sorry," I said. "I'm sorry it took me so long to tell you. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to admit it sooner." He smiled weakly, a tear slipping down his cheek. "It's okay, Ethan," he said. "You're telling me now, that's all that matters." And with that, I leaned in and kissed him. It was a soft, gentle kiss, a promise of love and understanding, a kiss that said, "I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." As I pulled back, I saw the love in Matt's eyes, and I knew that our journey was just beginning. But little did we know, our love story was about to face its biggest challenge yet. Over the next few weeks, Matt continued to recover, growing stronger each day. But as his physical wounds healed, the emotional trauma of the attack began to surface. He started having nightmares, waking up in cold sweats, his breath coming in ragged gasps. I would hold him, whispering soothing words, trying to chase away the demons that haunted him, but I knew it wasn't enough. Matt needed more than just my love and support. He needed help, and I was determined to find it for him, no matter what it took. As Matt's physical health improved, the emotional toll of the attack became more and more apparent. He would often wake up screaming, his body shaking with fear. I would wrap my arms around him, holding him tightly until the tremors subsided. but the pain in his eyes never truly faded. It was clear that the trauma of the hate crime was still very much alive within him. One day, as we sat in the hospital garden, the sun warming our faces, I decided to broach the subject. "Matt, I think you need to talk to someone," I said gently. "Someone who can help you work through this." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and resignation. "You mean a therapist?" he asked. I nodded, taking his hand. "Yes, a therapist. Someone who specializes in trauma and LGBTQ+ issues. Someone who can help you heal, not just physically, but emotionally too." Matt was silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the flowers blooming around us. Then he looked back at me, his eyes filled with determination. "Okay," he said. "I'll do it. I'll talk to someone." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. This was a step in the right direction, a step towards healing and moving forward. Over the next few months, Matt began seeing a therapist regularly. It wasn't easy. There were days when he would come home from a session, his eyes red from crying, his body shaking with exhaustion. But there were also days when he would come home with a newfound light in his eyes, a sense of hope and resilience that was inspiring to see. And through it all, I was by his side, supporting him, loving him, and helping him find his way back to himself. But as Matt began to heal, I started to notice a change in our relationship. He was growing more independent, more confident in himself and his identity. And while I was overjoyed to see him flourishing, I couldn't help but feel a pang of fear. What if he didn't need me anymore? What if, as he healed, he realized that he didn't want to be with me after all? The doubts and insecurities began to creep in, threatening to overshadow the love and happiness we had found. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I finally voiced my fears. "Matt, are you sure you still want this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Want what?" he asked, turning to look at me. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "Us," I said. "Are you sure you still want us?" Matt looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of surprise and understanding. He took my hand, squeezing it tightly. "Ethan, I love you," he said. "I've always loved you, and yes, I'm healing, I'm growing, but that doesn't mean I don't need you. It doesn't mean I don't want you. You're a part of me, Ethan, and I want you by my side always." His words filled me with warmth and reassurance, chasing away the doubts and fears that had been plaguing me. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. But little did we know, our love story was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would change everything we thought we knew. Just as we were settling into our newfound happiness, life threw us another curveball. One day, Matt received a letter in the mail. It was from the man who had attacked him, currently serving time in prison. Matt's hands shook as he held the envelope, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and disbelief. "What does he want?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. Matt took a deep breath and opened the letter, his eyes scanning the words quickly. As he read, his expression changed from fear to confusion, then to something else entirely. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a newfound determination. "He wants to meet with me," Matt said. "He says he wants to apologize, to make amends." I was taken aback. After all the pain and suffering this man had caused, he wanted to make amends. It seemed too good to be true. But Matt was adamant. He wanted to meet with him, to hear him out, to find some sort of closure. And as much as it scared me, I knew I had to support him. So we made the arrangements, and a few weeks later, we found ourselves sitting in a stark, cold visiting room, waiting for the man who had changed our lives forever. When he walked in, shackled and escorted by guards, I felt a surge of anger. But Matt remained calm, his eyes fixed on the man in front of him. The man sat down, his head bowed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry for what I did to you. I was filled with hate and fear, and I took it out on you. I can't take back what I did, but I want to make amends. I want to help others see the error of their ways, to prevent something like this from happening again." Matt listened, his expression unreadable. Then he took a deep breath and spoke. "I forgive you," he said. "I forgive you, and I hope you find peace. I hope you use your time in here to become a better person, to help others, to spread love instead of hate." The man looked up, tears in his eyes, and nodded. It was a moment of profound healing, not just for Matt, but for both of us. As we left the prison that day, I looked at Matt with a newfound sense of awe and admiration. He had taken the worst moment of his life and turned it into an opportunity for healing and growth. He had chosen forgiveness over hatred, love over fear, and in that moment, I knew that our love story was far from typical. It was a journey of healing, of growth, of forgiveness, and it was ours. So, if you're watching this and feeling inspired, or if you're on your own journey of love and healing, remember to subscribe to our channel, share your stories, watch our videos, and comment down below with your favorite part of this video. Let's build a community of support and love, one story at a time, because every journey is unique and every love story deserves to be told. Until next time, stay true to yourself and keep loving fiercely.